Get ready to crush it. Crush it.
Yeah.
This is the Crush It Podcast with Matt and Mason.
Welcome in to the Crush It Podcast. This is Matt Davis along here with my co-host Mason Burchett.
How's it going?
Pretty good. So wanted to, real quick before we get into today's episode, just want to say thank you to everybody for all of the downloads and the response that we're getting from our last few podcasts. Cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. And want to remind you, if you haven't yet, be sure to interact with us on our social media pages at Do The Doubt, on Facebook, on Instagram, and then also, I guess we're getting started on a couple other social media platforms that we're going to be getting some information out to you about. Excited about all that. But what I'm going to do is kind of pass it over to Mason real quick, because we're really excited about today's podcast, because we have actually got our first guest. And something that we've been looking forward to for a little while. Talked about, who it's going to be, and just the right doors opened up. Have just got to recently meet this gentleman, and he's a friend of Mason's. He's going to explain all that, but really looking forward to the content that we're going to get out today. So Mason, why don't you take over and introduce our guest?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to have the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Tipton here with us today. Me and Mark work together at Best Buy Metals. He's our director of sales. We've been working together for the better part of a year, more than a year now. Mark, I'm going to let you dive in and introduce yourself. Okay. Tell us about what you're doing and some of your professional background.
Okay, well, right now, for the past year and a half, I've been with Best Buy Metals. Started in an outside sales capacity, working with wholesale accounts, getting those accounts up and generating and producing like they should, with the intention all along from the very first meeting of at some point moving into a managerial role. And so for about the past 3 or 4 months now, I was named the director of sales. So I'm managing now our inside sales teams, our outside sales teams, and our national sales teams. Just again, developing that team concept, growing, introducing them to some standardized processes, opening doors of opportunity for them, showing them how they can do what they do even better. That's what I've been doing. Then prior to that, I guess I could go back and start. I started out my career as a high school teacher and coach. I was a high school English teacher and football coach, baseball coach, strength conditioning coach. Did that for about 12 years. Had a lot of fun, a lot of success in that. One of the things that, especially in this area, people may know, back in the early 90s, Cleveland football was a pretty big deal. We won 3 consecutive state titles, had a 54-game winning streak over a 4-year period of time.
I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah, at that point, we had the second longest winning streak in the country, only behind LaSalle High School out in California.
I didn't even know that.
It was pretty fun. We had a great run, and then I got recruited out of the classroom by a company that had come to sell us some educational products to use in our classroom. I was in a meeting. They did a presentation. We had question and answer, that sort of thing. We bought the products. I used the products. 2 years later, 2 years, hadn't heard a word from anybody. 2 years later, I come into school one morning. The department chair said, "Hey, some company called and wanted to talk to you about coming to work for them." I told them you weren't interested and threw the number away. And I said,
just like any good boss.
Yeah, I said, "Really? Where is it?"
Which trash can?
Yeah. She said, "Are you kidding me? Are you interested?" I said, "I'll never say no until I first investigate and find out what it is."
Absolutely.
So you never know where opportunity is coming from. So she literally went over, and this is a miracle, because they empty the garbage every night, right? They didn't empty her garbage can.
Well, she really did throw it away.
She really threw it away in the garbage can. Went over, pulled the number out of the garbage can, gave it to me, and I called them. Next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Chicago. We do an interview over dinner. They say, hire the guy. And so I got hired out of the classroom into educational sales, going to work for a company that sold educational products. McDougall Littell was the company. They were a secondary language arts program at the time. They then merged, and then I moved from there to the McGraw Hill companies, which is a nationwide,
Very well
not a
known,
national,
yeah.
international company. They sell around the world. I mean, they're a huge organization. Zeroing in on 750 million to $1 billion in sales.
Wow.
Would be a big deal. So
Incredible.
I was a sales rep for them, and then I moved into regional manager. I was a VP of sales. Also, after a stint with them, about 10 years or so with them, I've been a national sales manager for a promotional products company. I've been a corporate trainer for a logistics company. So I've got to do a lot of fun stuff.
Wow.
Prior to coming to Best Buy Metals.
That's awesome. And one thing that I kind of noticed, even going back to high school. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you played for this. Did you play football for this high school?
Not for this high school.
Okay.
No,
But
in Middle Tennessee.
What was fascinating is that in every area you have worked, you started at a low tier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kind of worked your way up.
Yeah.
Even at Best Buy here, when
Sure.
they knew your potential, you accepted a little bit of a, to be honest, if we're being real, probably a position that was below what you came from.
A huge cut in pay.
Yeah.
It was a huge demotion for
Yeah.
me. But I was at a place in my life where there were things more important than money.
Right.
I'm reaching the end of my working career, and so there were things that my quality of life, the time I had off, the time I had with family and grandkids, and those things were more important to me. And I said, it's worth it to me to go do this temporarily, but in just a short order. And they even, Adam and Isaac, even in the first interview, they were like, dude, you're way overqualified.
Right.
We don't know, we're embarrassed to even offer. And I said, hey, shoot a number out there. I'm in a different place. I'm not your normal guy looking to climb the ladder. I'm on the other side of it.
For sure.
For clarity, Mark's climbed back down the ladder a little bit. He's really come on to Best Buy Metals as a mentor for our leadership team.
And that's awesome. That's awesome. And the fact that you were kind of playing the long game with all these opportunities, because, and I think that's a lesson that a lot of times in the sales and entrepreneur mindset, it's, I deserve it today. Right. I did this. Right. Do you not realize what I've done? Yeah. But a lot of times you got to take a step back and prove yourself a little bit. And then play for the long game.
That's something Mason and I've talked about, and I've coached some of the other guys to do. I said, if you want to achieve, if you want to climb the ladder, go ahead and assume the role, start doing the job, do it with excellence now. Right. They'll recognize and say, he's been doing this job for 6 months, I guess we ought to pay him.
Might as well pay him for it.
And that's exactly right. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So speaking of doing jobs well, I was in Mark's office the other day, his personal office at his house, because I'm that cool.
Right.
And
the rest of us just hope to achieve
That's right.
level.
I'm on a personal office basis with Mark.
Right.
No, but I'm in his office. When you walk into Mark's office, he's got, awards everywhere, sales awards. Okay. I was looking at these awards, and there's awards that say 111%, 126%. These are sales awards. Tell us a little bit about what those were, Mark.
Yeah, those were really cool times. So these were from the years at McGraw Hill, and it was some of them when I was a sales rep, some when I was the VP of sales, managing a territory of 5 or 6 states. But you can imagine, we look at sales goals and numbers now, and regardless of what size your business is, everybody should be setting goals and trying to attain goals and grow, right? So, some of these were, individual sales goals. I had individual sales goals of $6 million, $7 million. One person, that's what you're supposed to bring in, is that much.
Wow.
And was fortunate enough to do, 120, 121, 126% of those goals. One year as a regional VP where I had 6 states and 7 reps working for me, just our regional goal was $52 million. It was twice the size of the current company.
Right.
Just my little region. So that tells you how big these things were. And that was probably my most gratifying year. It's an interesting story because it was right in the heart of the last recession. And I had a $52 million sales goal. We did 98% of that goal, which was far and beyond what anybody else in the company, nobody else even came close. Right. They were at 60, 70% of goal. We had 98% of the $52 million sales goal in the heart of the recession, which even though we didn't make the goal, I was like, this is a huge success, a huge win for our team.
Yeah.
So it was fun.
That's pretty amazing. Just the fact, I don't care what the goal is. Now reaching a $6-7 million personal goal is impressive, no matter what industry you're in. That's impressive. But what I think is speaks much more volume than that is I don't care what your goal is. The mindset is I hit my goal, I slow down.
Oh man,
that's kind of the mindset.
Yeah.
I don't care what your goal is. The fact that you hit 126, 110, whatever those numbers were, you exceeded that goal speaks volumes more than the dollar amount.
Yeah.
Because that's the mindset. Slow down. Hey,
Right.
I hit my goal. I'm good.
Yeah.
But no, it's I hit my goal. How much further can I go?
Yeah, so many people, it's time to eat, drink, be merry, enjoy your time,
Right.
slow it down. Or even some people, hey, if I pocket this, I can start next year. If I
Right.
tell them to hold off and not buy, wait till January 1. But some people are that way. I've always been one of those people, and we had some things put in place, and that's what we're working to develop at Best Buy Metals. Actually had this conversation this morning with one of our divisions, and that is, once you hit your goal, a smart company will have incentives that'll say, we will pay you an extra percentage, whatever that percentage is, for anything you do over goal.
Yeah.
So that you don't tend, because it is human nature to back off and relax and say, man, I killed myself, I need a break, I'm going on vacation.
Right.
Hey, for us, that's when you made bank.
Yeah.
Once you hit goal and suddenly you found out, hey, for anything I do over goal, I can make 10%. My foot's going in the accelerator, and I'm running hard.
You haven't made money till you pass the goal.
Yeah. You're just playing.
Reach the goal and get started.
Then that's when, it's, like I said, that's the fourth quarter. That's when you crank it up, man. That's when you really, really sell out. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Fun years.
So I'm going to change up the direction we were going to go, because this is kind of sliding right into something I want to talk about. You were talking about, obviously you work with building our teams here at Best Buy Metals, and you were talking about the team that you had at McGraw Hill and how you guys met your goals there. How instrumental was it, and tie your coaching experience into this too, how instrumental was it? Obviously you're a world-class sales guy, but to have a team that was focused. Yeah.
Well, everything that I ever did in coaching is directly relatable to what we're doing in sales. I mean, it is a perfect dynamic. So the same skills and traits and techniques that you use when you're coaching really parlay right over into sales. I mean, the first thing you got to do is you got to earn the trust and respect of your team. And you do that by leading by example. You don't push, you lead. So you got to get out front. You got to do the same. Just like we did this morning, right? We went over and led by example. So you lead by example. You bring energy. You set high expectations. You don't take excuses or no for an answer. You find a way to get it done. Of course, you got to build that right team. Sometimes those people are already there. They just need to be pulled out, and you bring out the best in them by giving some guidance and direction and goals and expectations. Some of them don't have the mindset or the energy, or as we say, the motor.
Right.
You don't have the motor to do this. If you don't have the motor, you're going to do something else, because we've got busy things, important things we need to be doing. So we got to bring on additional talent to do that. But really, everything parlays over into that. So establishing and building that cohesive team first, earning their trust. And then, I always said there's two ways you can coach or you can lead. One is out of love, the other is out of fear. I played for both kinds of coaches. Yeah. Those that you feared, you did what they said because you feared what they were going to do if you didn't. You were going to run 50 more wind sprints, or we're going to stay out here all night or whatever. Okay. But you know what happens to those people? As soon as you're out from under their tutelage, you forget about them. You want to erase that from your memory. You never want to think about them again. You never call them or follow up or do anything else. That was a part of your history you want to forget. It wasn't fun. You don't want to remember that. But then there are those coaches who motivate out of love and respect and honor, and they want you to succeed, not because they can gain something from it, because they want to see you succeed. Yeah. They want to see you grow as a human being and as a person. When you get those kind of coaches, there's nothing you wouldn't do for them. Right. And I've got one now. I was telling Mason, he's more like my dad than he was my coach. I mean, I send him Father's Day cards. I go visit him when I go back home. Every year at Christmas, we try to go home and visit them. And literally, I lived with the guy for 6 months when I was in a tough spot in my life. And he took me in and mentored me and coached me and loved me and provided for me. So, man, you don't think there wasn't anything I wouldn't do for him on Friday night on the field? Absolutely. It was amazing. I mean, I was playing college football. We're in 3 days. It's hot. We're dead. I mean, we're dying out there in 3 days. And I look up, and actually one of my buddies punched me and said, "Hey, man, is that your dad over there watching you play? I mean, watching us practice?" And I looked over there, and it was my high school football coach. Wow. He had driven to the university and was standing there on the side watching me practice. And it was just, we had that kind of bond.
Yeah.
And so when you get a coach like that, there's nothing you wouldn't do. There's no obstacle you wouldn't overcome. Even when there are bumps in the road or there are disagreements, you know that he has your best interest in mind.
Right.
So there's nothing you wouldn't do. And those are the kinds that, even now, the players that used to play for me are doing the same things that I did for my coach. When they come into town, hey, coach, you in town? I want to come by and see you. Or they call me up, or they keep in touch through social media or whatever. And that's the relationship you're trying to build with your
creating
team.
a culture.
Yeah.
Creating a culture. And you can see that as a college football fan.
Oh. Yeah.
Even from the outside, as a Tennessee fan, and all the pain,
how painful it is.
all the pain of the last 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
The coach, you can see the culture they're creating, whether it's even from a fan's perspective, whether it's out of fear or out of love.
And it can't be fake. There were
Right.
some coaches who came in between there who were trying to build that culture, whether it was brick by brick or whatever
Right.
it was. That was what they were saying on the outside, but on the inside, it was that culture of fear and intimidation.
Right.
And these players didn't love their coach. But now, you say what you want, believe what you want, go to Clemson.
Oh,
Check
absolutely.
out Dabo Swinney does things. It's
Absolutely.
You compare him to Nick Saban, even they're both successful. But Dabo's kids would do anything for him.
100%.
Anything for him. That's the difference, and that's why he's beating
It's a
Alabama
great
2 out of 3.
example. It's a great example
really
of what
is.
you see going on.
Yeah, and let's bring that part full circle, Mark, because correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason that those coaches resonated with you is because, like you said, they were authentic.
Yeah.
And it meant something to you on a personal level. It was more than just football, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so we talked a little bit about this the other day when we were driving down the road.
Yeah.
But you told me a story about a kid that said, "Well, Mark, you've had everything handed to you. You got all kinds of money. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, this was that was one year when I was teaching.
Yeah.
So, I was teaching high school English and coaching, and kids have problems.
Right.
You get all kinds of kids. It's a public school situation. This kid he had a rough life, man. He did. He had a rough life, and he was in a situation where he felt like he had to work, and so he wasn't turning assignments in. He was doing poorly on tests and knew he wasn't studying. He was coming to class late every day. I had him first period. He was late every day, and had every excuse imaginable. And finally one day, because I'm one of those, I don't let it go. I'm like, dude, you're late again.
Yeah.
Coach, just let me slide. I said, no, go get a slip. I mean, this is the drill. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to do this. I was trying to teach him life in the real world. If you're going to show up for a job, you're late, they're going to fire you.
Yeah.
So I was trying to help him understand that.
Yeah.
And so I was holding him accountable, and one day he just blew. I mean, right in front of class. He walks in, he's late. I tell him, just blew. All the other kids sitting there ready for class to start. And he goes off and he said, "You don't have any idea how I grew up or what's going on in my life and what things I don't have and the troubles I have. And I got to work and you probably had everything handed to you your whole life." And that's when I said, "Hey, bud, time out.
Yeah.
Let's go take a walk." And so through that walk, I got to share with him what life was like. Because, here's what we do. We see people for who they are today.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we think, I look at Mason, good-looking guy, well-dressed, educated. Right?
We'll let that slide.
Same with you, man. I mean, you guys are sharp guys. You seem like you got it all together, but we all have a story.
Absolutely.
And what I learned in my life was, and especially the hard way growing up, everybody has a story. And so what he didn't know, he saw me, educated, successful, state championship winning coach, well-dressed, well-spoken, right? In a position of authority. He just assumed drove a nice car. He just assumed, oh, you've always had this stuff, right? He didn't know that neither of my parents finished high school.
Yeah.
He didn't know that I have 4 brothers and 3 of them are high school dropouts. He didn't know that 2 of my brothers have been incarcerated for drug use and drug resale. And he didn't know that as a kid, I mean, literally, when I was in middle school, we lived at the end of a dirt road, not a gravel road, a dirt road in a shack that didn't have running water or electricity. He didn't know that.
Right.
He just saw me at that moment.
Yeah.
So everybody has a story, and everybody has obstacles that we're overcoming. Everybody has our struggles.
Yeah.
And you just look at people on the surface, sometimes you ask, why did that guy do that? I mean, why did that person, it seemed like an idiotic thing to do. Why did they do that? I promise you there's a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We may not understand it or see it, but there's a reason that motivated them to do. They think they're doing the right thing or the best thing for them at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, which is incredible the way you were able to overcome adversity and pull yourself up and become successful. And a lot of people would look at that and say, man, you pulled yourself up and overcame adversity. But your faith had a lot to do with that too. Me and you met with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes yesterday. I had a meeting with them, and awesome group. Why don't you talk a little bit about the impact that they had on your life and how your faith played into this?
I hope you could see just from the few minutes we spent with him yesterday how important that is.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a life-changing watershed moment in my life. But even before that, it's cool how God placed people in my life to provide what I needed when I needed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I was that kid who teammates, classmates were always saying, hey, why don't you come over and spend the night with me? And it didn't turn into one night, it was 2 nights or 3 nights or 4 nights.
Right.
And the next thing I know, their parents are buying me clothes and they're feeding me dinner and they're taking me to school, and because they saw the need.
Right.
And they saw a kid who was trying. I can't explain it. I was a kid, I didn't know any better. I was just doing the best I knew how to do, but they saw something worth redeeming. They saw something worth helping. And then I made it to high school, and I remember, whether it was coaches or parents, whatever. I mean, how cool is this? Think about sports today, especially in public school. Every football coach I ever played for was a Christian.
Wow.
You think that was an accident?
Absolutely
There's no
not.
accident, man.
Nah.
That was ordained by God. He knew that I didn't have a father figure. My dad was an alcoholic. He was never around. He never came to watch me play. My dad saw me play one high school football game. Now, I played high school football, I played college football. So I was a pretty good player. How many dads would never go watch their kid play? I mean, especially,
Right.
You would think they would be there hanging on the fence every Friday night, right?
Yeah.
Didn't care. Never came. He was so consumed in alcoholism that he couldn't care about anything but himself. But I had coaches, I had teachers, I had parents that cared about that. But then when I got to high school, I remember a day, and I was telling Mason, the coach came by and he said, hey, if I can raise the money, if I can find the funds to send you to a camp, will you go? And I immediately said, yeah. I didn't know what it was or where it was. I said, yeah, I'll go. And he said, well, this is an FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll do that. And somehow, some way, he found the money to make that happen.
Wow.
He went out and begged and borrowed and asked for funds. He took 12 of us, 12 football players, high school football players, my junior year, 16 years old, from Dixon, Tennessee, which is just west of Nashville, over to Black Mountain, North Carolina, over in your neck of the woods, up the mountain road to the YMCA Blue Ridge Assembly, and I spent a week up there at FCA. It was an all-boys camp. There were over 700 young men from all across the Southeast, from Florida to Virginia and all over, who descended upon this camp for a week. And while I was there, it was the first time in my life where I was truly exposed to people of all denominations worshiping the same God.
Yeah.
It was the first time I ever saw people put aside their differences, the things that separate and divide, and focused on the one thing that united, and that was Jesus Christ our Lord. Wow. And I saw men like Bobby Bowden, who took this, I knew Bobby Bowden, he's the coach of the Florida State Seminoles. I know that guy. And I'm sitting back there as an impressionable young football player thinking, one day I'm playing at Florida State. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That never happened. but I'm thinking, if he has that kind of faith, and he can do that, then God can take care of him, could he take care of me?
Yeah.
And I saw guys like Otis Taylor, who was an all-pro tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs, get up and share his faith. Monster of a man, huge man, who was humble and meek and shared his faith. There are guys now, I don't know if keep up with pro football now, but guys like Ben Watson.
Yeah.
Ben's a tremendous man of faith. I don't know if you know about him. There's men like Warwick Dunn, who grew up and played for Bobby Bowden, who I just saw on the news recently. Warwick Dunn bought his 40th home that he gave away to a single mom who was struggling.
Wow.
40.
That's amazing.
Guys who are paying forward what they're doing. And
Yeah.
so for me, growing up and going a part of that and seeing that, I remember it was a life-changing moment for me. It became real. It wasn't just something that people did. It wasn't just Christmas or Easter or what you do on Sunday morning. This is real.
Yeah.
And at that point, I gave my life to Christ, and it changed my life forever. It changed the trajectory. So when Mason said, man, now that you've told me about the rest of your family, how do you explain what happened to you and where you are compared to where they are, what they've done in their lives and what's the difference? And I mean, I remember being 6 years old and going to my mom and asking if I was adopted. Wow. There was something at that early point in my life where I realized I don't fit in. This is not where I belong. There's something different, better out there for me in life. and how God orchestrated those steps, every step of my life that brought me to that place,
Right.
that really catapulted me onto the rest of my life and has transformed me. So,
wow. I tell you that as I'm listening to you kind of tell your story, and Mason had mentioned a few of these things ahead of time as we were talking about you being here to kind of share your story with us a little bit. And as you're talking, I think that this message is so important to get out because we're living in a society where people who come from a rough background, they write themselves off. They find their identity. They allow themselves to be defined by that hardship in their life. That becomes their identity.
Yeah.
When you see them, they have embraced the identity of how rough my past was, who my parents were, the opportunities I didn't have. But what we're doing is we're listening to an individual give testimony that you decided not to be defined by that. You didn't find your identity in where you came from.
Right.
You found your identity in Christ that allowed you to reach where you're at today.
Completely changed.
And so many people, they allow themselves to be identified by maybe even, and this is something I see a lot, is people who aren't, they come from a good background, but something bad happens to them. One bad thing happens, and from that point on,
they lose their faith.
Right, that's their identity. I'm the person who ... And you can't be defined by these
They've
things.
allowed themselves to accept the role of being a victim.
Absolutely.
And,
the victim
you can
mentality.
either choose, that's who I am, I can't change that, that's what I'm going to be, there's no hope. Or you can say, no, I've got a God who's got a better plan for me. And I tell that story so people can understand. I grew up, one of the longings I had as I was growing up was I wanted a father.
Yeah.
Because my father wasn't there. And when I became a believer in Christ, I gained a father that I'd never had.
That's incredible.
Absolutely.
And it became so real to me, And I even told Mason, I remember at the time I couldn't put all the pieces together. Now I can. Up until I was 16 years old, even though I was a good athlete and I was a good student, in spite of, we didn't have books at home, we didn't read at home, there was nobody teaching me anything at home because there was nothing there. For whatever reason, I still was a good student, I still was a good athlete. But reaching beyond that, I can remember reaching a place where it was just, I was introverted, I was doubtful, I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. Which is, you say, wait a minute, how could you be a good athlete? But I didn't. I mean, in the classroom, I never spoke up because I thought everybody was smarter than me. Socially, I was awkward because everybody was richer than me. They wore better clothes than me. They lived in nicer houses. They drove better cars. I didn't fit in, and I was like, I'm an outcast. I don't have that sense of belonging. I don't have that sense of family.
Right.
But after I attended that FCA camp and God revealed his plan to me and how much he loved me and he became my father, I told Mason it was like a switch flipped.
Yeah.
And I went from being this introverted kid my sophomore year to this outgoing, gregarious, confident, life of the party, fun-loving guy who suddenly found this confidence in himself.
Right.
And there were a couple of things that attributed that too. I remember having a teacher. He was a baseball coach in high school, and I played baseball. And I remember coming into class one day. Great guy. He unfortunately had been affected by polio and had a terrible limp, but he was our baseball coach, and a great guy. And I remember him one day in class. He didn't have to do this. He didn't have to say this. But in front of the whole class, I remember one day, it was a class that had nothing to do with anything, right? It was one of those electives. And I remember him saying, it doesn't matter if you have one pair of jeans. He didn't know that I only had one pair of jeans.
Wow.
Unless he'd been paying attention.
Yeah.
Or if you only have a t-shirt, and he noticed I wore a t-shirt, and I wore it pretty regularly because I didn't have much to wear. Or it doesn't matter if you only have one pair of shoes. He said, if you keep that shirt tucked in, and those shoes clean, you're just as good as anybody.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, so people were pouring into me in a variety of ways that I didn't even see.
Yeah.
Right? And so God had a bigger plan, and planted those people in my life to give hope and encouragement, direction. But another thing too that I told Mason too, another thing I learned pretty quickly was when that bell rang at 3 o'clock, and whether you went to the football field or the basketball court or the track or the baseball field or wherever I had it afterwards, when you got down there and you suited up, that field was level. It didn't matter who your daddy was.
Right.
Didn't matter who your mama was. Didn't matter how much money you had, what kind of car you drove. You better strap it on because everybody's equal here.
Yeah.
And the only way that you were graded or evaluated was by your performance.
Yeah.
It was a performance-based culture. That was one reason people ask me all the time, why did you get out of teaching and coaching? I mean, you guys won 3 state titles in a row, and you had a 54-game winning streak, and literally the last game I ever coached was the game that broke that streak.
Wow.
We won 54 games in a row. We finally lost in the quarterfinals of the state playoffs that 4th year. That was the last game I coached. That next spring, I got out of teaching and coaching. They asked me why I got out. I tell them I couldn't take losing. I can't handle it. In reality, though, what I realized, God had been working through me over the past several years, showing me that education, public education, is not a performance-based culture. Mm. I saw a guy that worked right across the hall from me. He left his door open. I left my door open. He had been teaching 30 years. I'd been teaching 10 or 12. He came in every day, had a stack of worksheets on his desk. The kids walked in, picked up the worksheet, went and sat down, did the worksheet, turned it back in. He sat there with his feet crossed and read the newspaper every single day. And I'm over here busting my butt, trying to reach these kids who are struggling like I did, coming early, staying late, doing everything I could to motivate, encourage, and inspire. And he made more money than I did because he'd been there longer than me. And that's the only way you could get a raise was to be there longer or to get another degree. And by the time you paid for a degree, it took you 10 years just to recuperate the money you invested in getting the degree. There was no way to get ahead.
Yeah.
And so I reached a point where I said, how cool would it be, just like in sports, how cool would it be if I could find a place where I could be rewarded for my performance?
Yeah. And
that's what I found in sales.
Wow.
Doesn't matter. You go get it done, find a way to get it done. We're gonna reward you for it.
So what was it like, Mark? Because I'm just in here soaking it on like a sponge. But what was your thoughts when you get that plaque? I don't know what your first plaque was, but when you get a plaque that says, you had done this much of your sales goal, those commission checks are rolling in, you've made it. It's kind of clicked. You've arrived. What was it like for you in that moment when you kind of looked back on all that stuff? Through your growing up, through your childhood, what was that like?
Oh man, it was life changing. And to take what Matt said earlier, and to take where you're going with this now, it didn't happen the first year.
Right.
My first year in sales, I didn't make my sales goal. I didn't.
Yeah.
I had a big goal, had a big number. I fell a little bit short.
Yeah.
Did 90% or 95% or whatever, and my manager was on my case. Riding me hard.
Right.
What was your goal? We need to reach that goal. You didn't make it. What are you doing? Started micromanaging, looking at everything. And so when they started looking, they said, man, he's doing everything. He's doing everything he can be doing. They gave me some coaching and direction and guidance. And I continued to learn and grow and mature and get better and learn to maximize my time and those kind of things. But when I finally reached that goal, and it was about the 3rd year, there's something special about the 3rd day or the 3rd year. I really believe that. I don't think that's by accident. If you read through the scripture, you'll see it over and over again. It'll say on that 3rd day or the 3rd year. There's a reason that's there. But it took me 3 years to really find my way to develop a client base of people that I'd earned their trust and their respect. So that's when I exceeded those sales goals. And man, when you get that first commission check, we made a salary that you could live on. It was a little bit better than I made teaching and coaching, but you weren't getting rich by any means.
Sure. Right.
But when you can reach a place where you can get a commission check, and I told Mason, that one year he was looking at the one that said 126% of goal or whatever. I said, yeah, that was pretty cool. I took about 15 or 20% of my bonus check that year and paid cash for a brand new car.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's life changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's life changing when you can do that. When you get to a place where you can say, man, I can become debt free.
Yeah.
I can walk into a place and say, hey, I know this is a sticker on it, but what if I wrote you a check for it? What can I do? And I remember doing that. And it's life altering and life changing. And when you look back and you go, man, I'll tell you this story. This really sums it up best, I think, Mason. Of all the things God has blessed me to do, this is one of the crazy ones. In 2006, I ended up on The Price is Right. And got called down, and I won a trip to Austria on The Price is Right. Okay, and I'm like, what am I? I wasn't even planning on coming to The Price is Right. But I did, and I won a trip to Austria. And so I can literally remember my wife and I, and we're standing on top of the Austrian Alps. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, how in the world did a guy from Charlotte, Tennessee, who grew up like I grew up, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's by your good hand. I mean, you made a way, you opened doors, and when you led me, I followed.
Yeah.
And when you asked me or showed me a way, I listened.
Yeah.
And God has blessed greatly. So, man, I can't give any credit. People say, "Oh, look what you did." No, man, I didn't.
Yeah.
There were people, God planted people all along my path. The difference is I was willing to pay attention.
Yep.
I listened to them. I took their coaching. I took their advice. So many people are obstinate and hard and bitter and hard-headed and I want to do it my own way. But for whatever reason, I saw that they were trying to help me.
Yeah.
And I listened. And I took their advice and their coaching. And God continued to bless. And He continues to do that today.
And going back to what you said a few minutes ago when you mentioned being able to take that 15-20% and go pay cash, that's our first thought is, so you made a lot of money, but really what you've done is you've gained an element of freedom. We talk about money, and what really we're doing is we're achieving a level of freedom that we can have in our lives to be able to reach out. Mason, we've talked about this, with some of the negative remarks towards what we're doing.
Sure.
At the beginning of this, the conversation we had is, we want to reach certain goals so that we can reach a level of freedom where, we can help, like you said, where when there's 12 football players that need to go to an FCA camp, things like that. And that comes with that freedom. It's not necessarily about a dollar amount. It's about having that freedom in life. And that's something that you were able to experience.
Yeah, and it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
I truly believe debt is the shackle that binds us to a life of struggle.
Yeah.
It really does. And when you can be disciplined enough, and it's a discipline. It's like anything else. It's like getting up early and reading your Bible or working out or trying to stay healthy or eating right, which I struggle doing sometimes, or whatever the case may be. It's a discipline. And being disciplined with your finances is just as important. So taking what God gives you and what He's blessed you with and using it and being a good steward with that and sharing and blessing others with it and letting yourself see, He didn't bless me so I could be blessed. He blessed me so I could be a blessing to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm just a conduit through which He's reaching and touching other people.
Right.
Even with my kids, this is something I started doing early on. When I got my first commission check ever, I started this. Bonus day. When Dad gets a bonus, everybody gets a bonus.
That's awesome.
So I started bonus day with my kids. So I would
just won't let my kids listen.
so whenever I got that bonus, and I still do that today. My kids are grown; they're 29 and 26. But when Dad gets a bonus day, they get a bonus.
That's
day.
awesome.
Everybody wins in the Tipton household. So, but I started sharing with them, and I said, "I'm going to give you a lump sum of money, and here's my only requirement: that you save some, that you give some." And that you spend some. You have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Those are the three requirements. And you got to tell me how you did what you did. I mean, I want you to enjoy it, have fun with it.
Right.
But I want you to help somebody with it, give some, and I want you to save some. And that's the lesson I taught them from the beginning. It's that simple. Awesome. Yeah. And that's what I've done with mine. I always live my life where we're going to live off of my salary. Whatever, that's my salary. That's what we're living. We're going to live within those means. That way, when you do get a bonus of some kind or a windfall, now you can do some pretty amazing things with it because you've already gotten your life accustomed to living within your means.
Right. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and Mark, we're about to wrap up here, sure. Mark, but you said something a second ago that I felt like was so important.
Yeah.
Because we talked about how your faith played into that. We've talked about how God blessed you, God gave you opportunity. I think a lot of people, especially in the faith circle, hear that and they think, well, I'll just wait until God blesses me with the same thing.
Yeah.
But the truth is, you didn't do that on your own. Of course, God helped you and He blessed you, but He gave you opportunity and you capitalized on it. So how important is it for people to not just sit around and wait for God's blessings to fall?
There are so many stories, so many examples of that. I told Mason about a quote that I used to give to my students. Every beginning of every marking period, 6 weeks, I put a quote on the board. And if they would memorize that quote, at the end of the 6 weeks, I would give them a point for every quote they could give back to me from memory.
Okay.
Because these were life-changing, life-altering quotes. And
Right.
one of them I still remember today. I put up there, I said, pray for a good harvest, but continue to hope.
Yeah.
And that's what God expects for us.
Right.
We should pray for a good harvest. We should. He
Right.
expects us to. He expects us to ask for those things. But while we're praying and while we're waiting, we're continuing to work.
Better be
we're
working.
continuing to hope.
That's
every
correct.
day.
Yeah.
Consistency is the key. It is. You get up every day. You get up with a good attitude. You get up and go to work consistently. You get there on time. You go with a teachable spirit, and God blesses. And you take that, and that's the difference, the real difference between so many people. They'll say, well, God just didn't give me that opportunity. Yeah, He did. Yes, He did.
That's good.
Yes,
That's good.
yes,
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
You ignored it.
Right.
You didn't do the things you needed to do. And I can see that in my own family. I see it with my brothers. They look at me now, and some of them scornfully,
Right.
despisedly.
Yeah.
And they say, well, you had it better than me. I said, wait a minute. I grew up in the same house with the same mom and dad. You had the same opportunities I had. You just made different decisions than I made.
It's good.
You made
That's
different
great.
decisions.
That's great.
That's good.
So I know we're about to wrap up, Mason, but I mean, there's so much we've.
I want to ask all the questions.
Yeah, so much we've
We can
learned, and
do a part two. If you want.
we could really go on forever. But there's kind of two things. One we really focused on, and one was talked about a lot that I want to just mention. There's two different sides of this. We're talking about a man who overcame adversity and was able to take advantage of opportunity. And through all these stories, you mentioned these people that were put in your life that allowed you some opportunity.
Right.
So, I think one of the big messages from today is look for that opportunity, be thankful for those people that are put in your life. But on the flip side of that, for those who aren't coming from that side, somebody's got to be that person
Yes.
to those who are struggling.
Yes.
And so I think that's another valuable lesson we can learn from today is it was some obedience on those people's part
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
to be with some willingness, some obedience, some availability, some love, that they made themselves available for a young man that needed them. And so just as valuable as us saying, hey, if you're listening to this and you come from a bad background and you've got some adversity, you can't overcome that. You know what? We should also be focused on how can I help?
Yeah,
Where can I be put in that place to help somebody who needs
the
that?
scripture says that no man lives to himself and no man dies to himself.
Right.
And I don't think there's a better picture of that than Mark, the story you just gave us. I mean, the obedience of a few instrumental people in your life really developed you in those younger
no
years.
doubt.
It's great stuff.
There are really three short lessons, and I'll close with this. One, we have to, as God calls us, the only way we can ever repay somebody for what they've done is to let them know how much you appreciate it and what it's meant and how it's changed your life, and to pay it forward.
Yeah.
So we've got to do that. On the other side, if you're that young person, recognizing those opportunities and making the most of them when you get them is really key. But I don't want to lose sight that everybody has this opportunity.
Right.
And people often ask me, man, if you could go back and do it over, would you change? I said, no. Because
That's powerful.
it was those struggles
Yeah.
that taught you the lessons
Yeah.
that allowed you to overcome and to take it to the next level. I mean, it's just like lifting weights, right? You don't get any stronger if you don't put weight on the bar.
Right.
It's only get stronger.
Right.
My favorite story of all time is from a pastor or an author, Max Lucado. I've got every book. I showed Mason. I got the whole Max Lucado collection.
Yeah.
And Max tells a story about an oak tree in West Texas. And these oak trees grew enormous. They were huge. They were bigger and stronger than any oak trees anywhere else in Texas. And scientists were trying to figure out why are these trees so much bigger and stronger than all the other trees in Texas? They started taking soil samples. No, there's nothing in the soil. They started looking at the amount of sunshine and the rainfall. And there was nothing unique that would cause these trees to grow that much bigger, except for one thing. Have you ever been to West Texas? The wind always blows in West Texas. And it was that constant blowing, battling, fighting against the wind that caused the roots to go deep and the tree to grow strong. Wow. So it's truly that battle that makes us who we are, that makes you stronger.
Wow.
Is that not a powerful story?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast
Absolutely.
today. It has
Sharing
been a
this
treat.
with us.
Yeah, we could go on for another 2.5 hours. But we're going to close it up right here. Matt, why don't you go ahead and take us out?
All right, again, from me to Mark, thank you so much for taking the time. So much value in this. We greatly appreciate it. Again, if you haven't yet, go to our social medias, check us out on there, engage with us. Let us know what you think. Comment on today's podcast. Let us know how it helped you. And listen, we'll be sure to relay that message to Mark as well. But again, as we close out, no matter what you're doing or how you're doing it, crush it.